Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jared Solomon. I'm a chairman of Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness. Welcome. Chairman Gillum, would you lead us in the pledge? Okay, we have a number of items today. First, we're going to go to House Resolution 286 by Representative Kruger. Is she here or on Zoom? I mean Teams? No. Okay. Mike, if you could explain the resolution.
House Resolution 286 designates March 13th, 2024 as K-9 Veterans Awareness and Services Day in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. We will bring up the resolution. Representative Ham, seconded by Representative Haddock, for consideration, House Resolution 286. Are there any comments or questions about House Resolution 286? Chairman Gillen.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the maker and also reflect for a few moments. I started the Berks Military History Museum in Berks County, and on a number of occasions, we've had men and women come in to the museum who handle dogs, and whether it's Iwo Jima or Vietnam, these animals save lives. They help save American lives, and so it may seem a little odd that we're pausing here for service animals, but it should not. It should not be the case. They've worked alongside our very brave men and women, and I certainly have a debt of gratitude and support this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. On that same theme, about 20% of Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans deal with some form of PTSD. The veteran community have been looking for a long time to try and identify an effective way to combat PTSD and deal with other issues such as mobility struggles, suicide. And this provides a real outlet for our service members. Through companionship, there is the ability to, as Chairman Gillen mentioned, to really take a veteran that's struggling with mental health issues and put them on the right path. So I want to thank the maker. Any other questions or comments? Before we move on, we're just going to do the roll call. Jamie, please call the roll.
Chairman Solomon.
Here.
Representative Borowski. Representative Brown. VBD. Representative Genst. Representative Haddock. Here. Representative Markozik. VBD. Representative Monroe. VBD. Representative O'Mara. Here. Representative Pielli. Here. Representative Sappi. VBD. Representative Scott. Here. Representative Takak. VBD. He's virtual. Representative Webster.
Here.
Representative Dan Williams. Representative Mark Gillen.
Here.
Representative Banta.
Vote by designation.
Representative Ham. Here. Representative Krupa.
VBD.
Representative Mako.
VBD.
Representative Rigby.
VBD.
Representative Shalaba.
VBD.
Representative Stair.
VBD.
Representative Stender. Here. Representative Wattrow. Here. Representative Craig Williams.
VBD.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, folks online, can you hear us? Just give a thumbs up. Okay. And if anyone speaking in the room, if you could just please use the mic. Thank you. On the resolution, any negative votes? Seeing none, it passes unanimously, and we'll move to the floor. Next up is House Bill 16 26, authored by Representative Deasy. Is Representative Deasy here? Or online? Yes.
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
All you, Representative Deasy, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Solomon, Chairman Gilman. I appreciate the indulgence of your committee to consider this bill. I also appreciate the work of Mike and the staff of both sides of the aisle. This bill would require employers to display a poster containing information for veterans in the workplace about various benefits and services available to them. Similar to a standardized workplace posting that includes basic information about veteran services and benefits. For instance, substance and mental health abuse, mental health treatment available, education, workforce training, any other programs available, information for the PA Veterans Affairs Department, as well as legal service and other various services for those veterans. It would apply to employers with more than 50 full-time employees, and it's similar to legislation recently enacted in the state of New York. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank Rep. Deasy. We're also joined by Representative Webster. Thanks so much. First, we have to take up an amendment, Amendment A03479, offered by Representative Mark Kozik. I will take a motion to bring it up by Representative Amaris. Are you guys? And take a Republican on? I don't want a second. Is that okay? Take one of your guys? Or no? Okay, we'll leave it. Seconded by Representative Gens. For an explanation of the amendment, Mike.
Amendment A03479 would require DMVA to provide and publish the workplace posting and would allow an employer to satisfy the requirement by placing the posting on the employer's website where it is accessible by employees.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any comments or question on the underlying amendment? Chairman Gillen.
Yeah, just very briefly, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, I'm sure they weighed in on this, and what is their perspective?
Sure. The Department of Military and Veterans Affairs let us know that they're supportive of the concept of this bill and that there is additional work to be done on determining what should be on the poster and also whether labor and industry should be hosting part of this. So we're continuing those discussions.
Okay, so just very briefly, will any of that work require an amendment or just technical in nature in terms of the construct of that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be additional conversation between the prime sponsor and the department to determine the nature of the amendment, but I think there will likely be a floor amendment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Rep. Deasy, did you have anything else on that question?
No, I do appreciate the chamber reaching out regarding the amendment and the online ability to post it online. So I just wanted to, I appreciate their efforts in weighing in as well.
Okay, and any further questions, comments on the amendment? Now to a vote. Jamie, please call the roll.
Chairman Solomon,
Yes.
Representative Borowski,
Yes.
Representative Brown, Representative Genst, Representative Haddock, Representative Markozik, Representative Monroe,
Yes.
Representative O'Mara, Representative Pielli, Representative Sappi, Representative Scott,
Yes.
Representative Takak,
Yes.
Representative Webster,
Yes.
Representative Dan Williams. Chairman Gillen,
Yes.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Ham, Representative Krupa,
Yes. Yes.
Representative Mako,
Yes.
Representative Rigby,
Yes.
Representative Shalaba,
Yes.
Representative Stair,
Yes.
Representative Stender, Representative Wattrow, Representative Craig Williams.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Amendment A03479 passes unanimously. Now we will move on to the underlying bill as amended, House Bill 1626. We will take a motion by Representative Pielli, seconded by Representative O'Mara. Are there any questions or comments on the underlying bill? Representative O'Mara.
Thank you, Chairman Solomon. And thank you, Chairman Deasy, for bringing up this bill. I don't often talk about I've talked about my personal life and my politics a lot because I think it informs the decisions we make, but I don't often talk about my husband's. And Brad is a combat veteran who served in Afghanistan, has 2 Purple Hearts. And when he came back out of service, he started working right away. And when I met him 3 years later, I would say he was existing. He was working and going home and sleeping and repeating, but he wasn't doing anything at the VA. And I think a big part of that, when I finally was bold enough to ask him after meeting him a month later, it was he didn't know what to do. He didn't even know how to go about starting. And I know we at this committee work in a lot of ways of trying to make sure veterans are aware of the services that are out there. But often what I hear from younger veterans or veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan is they kind of avoid reaching out and talking about their service, and so they may ignore things that we're doing. And so I think putting it at work and making veterans see the options in front of them, whether it's online or whatever we end up with, is really important. And I just wanted to share that perspective and thank the committee for working together and trying to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions, comments? Chairman Gillen. Shocking. You sure, Seth? Okay. Seeing none. Are there any negative votes? House Bill 1626 passes unanimously and will head to the floor for consideration. Next up, we have Representative O'Mara, House Bill 1632. Representative Scott will bring the bill up, seconded by Representative Pielli. I turn to the maker of the bill, Representative O'Mara.
Thank you, Chair Solomon and Chairman Gillen, for bringing this bill up for consideration. I have remarks prepared just because this is a really emotional topic for me. I think you can see I'm probably sitting here shaking, but so I'm going to do my best to stick to them. House Bill 1632 will remove much-needed barriers for first responders seeking mental health treatment for post-traumatic stress injuries sustained over the course of their job duties. I would be remiss if I didn't start by specifically thanking my colleagues who have joined me in this effort as co-primes in this bipartisan bill, including Chairs Solomon and Gillen and Representatives Brennan, Kahn, Scott, and Rigby, the latter 2 being first responders themselves. We all know the value of our first responders. They're our neighbors, our friends, our family. When tragedy strikes, they are also the ones that we call to save the lives of our neighbors, our friends, and our family. We thank them every day for their duty and their service. And I feel that we can do more than just thank them, but provide them with the benefits they need to take care of themselves. What we have learned over the course of time is that first responders are human beings. And while they are also heroes to all of us, they are also not immune to traumatic events. And that is what this bill is trying to address. It was started as an effort by a former chair of this committee, Chairman Steve Barrar from Delaware County. And when I got to Harrisburg, it was one of the first bills I started to work on under the leadership of Chairman Barrar because it was so personal to me. When I was 13, I came home on a Sunday morning and found my dad had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound that he sustained 30 minutes after coming home from a shift as a member of the Philadelphia Fire Department. He worked for the fire department for 25 years. And I could see in my dad, even as a 13-year-old kid, that some shifts were harder than others. There were times where he would come home and not talk to us. There were times where he would come home and drink a lot of alcohol and then yell at us or do worse. And it's not easy living with someone who has untreated trauma. I just told you my husband's a combat veteran. I get it. And that's why I want to work on this bill. What we're trying to do with this bill is make it so a first responder can take a mental claim under workers' comp. They already can get workers' comp now for physical injuries or physical mental claims or mental physical claims. But when it comes down to something that is purely mental, we have been unsuccessful at passing this legislation for a number of factors and for a number of years. Now that we are finally moving it forward, I know that there are still those who have concerns about the bill. And I have been working very hard with people in support and opposed. And I do want to recognize there are stakeholders today who still do not support the legislation as it stands. We will continue those conversations, and I do expect us to offer a floor amendment before all is said and done and we pass this bill. But that amendment's not ready yet, and first responders can't wait anymore. We're heading into the budget season. We only have, as all of you know, it's an election year. We only have a set number of truly meaningful legislative days left. And I don't want to wait in moving this forward anymore. I don't want to wait any longer to at least move this forward out of committee and signal to both the Senate and to our stakeholders that we mean business this session and we really, really want to pass this bill. I also want to talk just a little bit about some of the things I've learned in the last few months. Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, has passed this legislation. They passed it actually 5 years ago. And a year ago, they amended it to add depression and anxiety. I'm not amending it to add more, although I personally would love to. I know stakeholders would be beside themselves if I tried to do that. But one of the things, I went and they were virtual, but I met with multiple police departments and their chiefs in Virginia to find out what happened once this bill passed. Did we see an enormous rise in premiums? Did we see a huge number of first responders taking advantage of the benefit? The answer to both of those questions was no. And that's because many of us know first responders. We know that they are very fearful of losing their job, and asking for help has been for so long one of the things that would make them lose their job. And so it's changing. The culture in Virginia has been hard to even make first responders feel comfortable in taking advantage. The rise in premiums didn't happen because there wasn't an enormous number of claims. And two of the chiefs that I spoke to from, I have so you know I'm not just making this up, from Arlington and Herndon, Virginia, the two departments in those towns actually referenced cost savings because the officers or the firefighter, these were officers who did take advantage, ended up resulting in less using sick time and then less paying out overtime to cover the sick time that was being used by people taking off because they're still not healed. And so I'm going to wrap up here. I'm sure there are members that have questions, but I really hope that we can at least take the step today, signal to our first responders that we support them, and move this forward out of committee. We say that we are grateful for our first responders, and it's time to show them just how much we care by making sure they have access to the health care they need because of the risks they take when we are in need. Thank you, Chairman Solomon, Chairman Gillen, and at this point, I'm happy to take questions from committee members.
Thank you so much for all your work on this issue, Rep. O'Mara. Any questions, comments from the committee? Representative Craig Williams, online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also thank you to Representative O'Mara in my home county of Delaware County. I would like to echo one sentiment in particular that she expressed. The first is that those of us who have served in combat often come home with injuries that last for a lifetime, and that very, very clearly extends to the trauma that is experienced when emergency responders are going to an emergency. I can give you, one little illustration. My son was a volunteer firefighter in high school and actually had his first death scene happen while he was still in high school. And I actually reached out to some of my colleagues who had been in combat and or in first responders to get him the help. But Lord only knows how long these injuries last. And so I want to express my support for this bill. I have communicated offline with the Republican chairman and also separately with the maker of the bill. They assure me that some of these concerns relative to insurance rates and premiums and the concerns of the municipalities about escalating costs will be addressed in the amendment process. And again, this is an effort that was started and encouraged by Representative and Chairman of the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee, Steve Brar, and then continued on by Representative Mara. I'm proud of these efforts and congratulate you on the effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Stender.
First, I'd like to thank the maker of the bill. As a fireman presently, it's something that is definitely near and dear to my heart. It is something that I hear about. We just had an incident in my district overnight that I know has affected everybody greatly. I will be voting to support it, but I appreciate your sentiment that you're willing to continue to work towards this. Some of my smaller municipalities are concerned about insurance premiums and that type of discussion. So, I'm very hopeful that we can find an amendment, as we move further along in this process that can be amenable to more of the stakeholders. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the sponsor of the legislation. This is an important issue, an issue that our first responders are facing each and every day. I speak out of experience as a combat vet, as a firefighter of 15 years. I've seen more than most people would ever see in their lifetime, and this is an issue that's important to me. I do have concerns of the current language and what that would mean for local municipalities, for the very small amount of commercial insurers that we have in this Commonwealth today. I was also a township supervisor and a borough manager, and so I know the struggles we have when we're looking for insurance for our police departments, our fire companies. They're just not there, and they all get shoved into SWIFT, which certainly has higher premiums. And so there are concerns that I have with the bill, and I hope that we will be able to sit down with the stakeholders, come up with an amendment that will move this issue along so that we can get it on the House floor and get it to the Senate. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ham. Representative Pielli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative O'Mara, for this bill. As the son and nephew of a New York City fireman, I support this bill wholeheartedly. I could sit here and talk about many stories, many tragedies of firefighters who have succumbed to depression, but I need not. I do recall, though, being 5 years old and sitting at the top of the stairs after being awoken because I heard crying, and never heard that voice crying before because it was my father's. It was my hero. And he was crying, and I asked my mom the next day what happened, and he found a bunch of children who didn't make it. He was in the famous Engine 290 in New York, which was the most busiest engine company for several years running throughout the United States. So the things that he saw and he suffered through, and as the father of 6 children, he struggled. He was able to get help, and it's a good story in the end, but there are so many stories about folks who haven't gotten help, and I think this bill is going to help people. And I don't think we should be afraid of it being abused. Firemen, firefighters, firewomen, they want to be firefighters. That's a type of profession that you just don't go into because you're thinking about, well, it's just a job. They love that job, and they want to be there, so they're going to do everything they can to stay. and protect us. So I thank you once again for this bill. I'm very proud to co-sponsor it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Haddock.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a little over a year ago, my stepson, who suffered from PTSD, died in a terrible car accident. And our local police department and firemen were first on the scene, of course. When we received the call, I chose not to go to the crash site with Zachary's mother. And we also chose not to go to the coroner's office. Our first responders did not have that option. And I think it's important to note that for the concerns of people, number one, SWIFT necessarily isn't the highest rate all the time for coverage. That's a fallacy. Sometimes SWIFT is very competitive and actually sometimes have the best rates. Now, I don't know this particular category. But also, the mental, as somebody that worked in the workers' comp insurance division for over 10 years, mental is the hardest case in workers' comp to be approved. So the fears of these highly professional first responders filing frivolous cases is just not so, because there's always an approval process. But it should be availed to them. Currently, that mental category is not an allowable case to be filed. So this would allow the case, and it still has to run the gamut for approval. I think that's very important to note. Thank you for your time.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to also thank the maker of the bill. Honored to be a co-prime on this, but definitely want to acknowledge the work that you have put in, acknowledge the work of Chairman Borar as well prior to you. Extremely proud of how courageous and strong you are and such a great example to your young daughter. I know to some in the room, you say, hey, he may not be a first responder. I know, got my beard today. But let's be clear about what this is really about. We've got young people, and some old, who are volunteering or who are working in the fire service. And traditionally, looking at local government hearings and council meetings, township boards of supervisors meetings, and listening to their budget when they go into budget, oftentimes the fire and EMS service is last to come up, pennies to the dollar, little investment, but we want them to go in and do the courageous work every single time, and they volunteer willingly to go into the burning building, to extricate the young child out of the car. They do it willingly every single time. And now we've done a good job at removing the stigma around when you need help to say something, yet they don't have the resources sometimes, or there's roadblocks to them getting the help that they need. The time has come. Costs will always be a factor. And when these folks come to me and talk to me about cost, I ask them, what has their investment been in their local fire and EMS service up until this point? And oftentimes there is silence. So maybe this is an impetus for those conversations, those crucial, courageous conversations about how do we fund fire and EMS, not just in these small municipalities, but across this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But make no mistake about it. We can't hold up this life-saving bill because we have people whining about pennies on the dollar. all of these men and women, these courageous men and women who we held up as heroes, deserve access to quality mental health treatment. We need to stop removing that roadblock. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm proud of you for bringing this up for a vote today. Yeah, we've got some work to do. The maker of the bill has made it clear that she's going to continue to have those conversations. But we need not wait another day. You look that mom or dad in the face of whose child is suffering because they answered the courageous call. Or talk to that parent or that spouse whose spouse is no longer here because they've taken their life because they couldn't handle the demons that they suffer with. And you tell them that their life's not worth it because of pennies on the dollar. I'm not willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Scott. Representative Webster.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be quick. I think it's important. There's a bunch of us in the room who are veterans. I think we all recognize a lot of times that veterans are the ones who go into the emergency preparedness and first responder career fields. So in some cases, they've taken on this effort twice. I think that helps us all let it resonate in our minds that there's a value here that's way more important than pennies on the dollar, as Representative Scott mentioned. My family also represents Philly firefighters, and we have seen the same stress and the same response in different generations, 3 generations of Philly firefighters. And this is dramatically needed to support those men and women who today are willing to take on the risks for our welfare as a community and the Commonwealth. Second thing I'd like to say is I'd like to joke that I don't know a lot about leadership, but I know it when I see it. And in the face of the different arguments, in the face of the challenges here, Rep. O'Mara's pushed this all the way to this point. I want to recognize that for all of us, sometimes leadership means just doing the right thing. And so I would encourage all of my colleagues to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Before Chairman Gillen, I'll go back to the prime sponsor, Representative O'Mara.
Thank you, Chairman Solomon. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of my colleagues who have spoken in support of this bill, even sharing your concerns. I hear them. I know many of us have been in Harrisburg for a bit now, and I don't know how many hearings you've sat through where everyone was quiet and listening and contributing and not fighting with each other in a meaningful way. And I think this conversation demonstrates, at least to me, that we can put our differences aside when it's really important and when it's an issue that's as serious as this one. And I really want to thank all of you for your patience and for your consideration as we push this forward. When I left my 19-month-old daughter this morning, and I talked to her about her grandpop, even though she obviously doesn't have the chance to know him, I told her I was going to do something to try to help other people's grandpops too. So I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, Representative O'Mara. Chairman Gillen.
I think everybody in this room, regardless of where you're sitting as an elected official or as a stakeholder, perhaps at the rear of the room, want to help our law enforcement and our emergency response personnel. To that extent, I think we're all yeses, if you will. I think the wrestling match is how do we get this done? There's a lot of heart in the room here. There's a lot more stories than we've heard, and I think the votes are going to reflect that. We cannot ignore solvency issues. We cannot ignore funding issues. And I spoke with the maker earlier today, and I've spoken to her throughout this entire process. Chairman Solomon and I had a conversation yesterday at length. How do we help somebody who's experiencing their worst day, and maybe they're around somebody who's experiencing their final day, which I did more than 20 years ago, spending 2 days at a horrific scene and driving back, and I responded in my own vehicle, and I needed to get out and have a good cry. So there's some real hurts out there, and maybe I can call this a tale of two dads. My dad was institutionalized at one point. He watched, unfortunately, men be incinerated on his aircraft carrier that was hit by kamikazes. That had an effect on his life. My colleagues who've experienced combat or hot situation, they know what that's about. Nonetheless, as I approach this job, there's certain standards that need to be applied. Is this an appropriate role for government? I think so. Is it moral? Is it constitutional? Is it affordable? And I think on the last point, that's where we have to properly calibrate, because we don't want to do anything here that would harm opportunities for somebody else inside or outside of this bill, inside or outside the system. We don't want to do anything that would harm opportunities for somebody to get help. I think this is a good faith effort, and I believe it's evolving from a wonderful idea to legislation that needs, I think, additional collaboration. And I've been very honest, and I've been upfront about this. PTSI is real, all right? And how are we going to help? One of my predecessors, Chairman Barrar, for 10 years, advocated for elements that are in this bill. And that this was going to be a slam dunk, or this was going to be easy, perhaps somebody thought. You didn't get your arms quite wrapped around all the issues that are involved here. There's a number of stakeholders that have communicated to me. I've read everything that's come across my desk. I've picked up the phone. I've made the phone calls. We have a responsibility to those that are injured. We have a responsibility to people that are in the system. We have an obligation to hear from stakeholders. And from my vantage point, this isn't the moment for me to be amending something. This is an opportunity for everybody involved in this process to continue to work in a good faith effort to get the product that's going to pass this chamber, get to the other side of the building, get their assent, and get to the governor's desk. If I could draw on just a line as I close that came across my desk from one of the stakeholders that is in the back, and I'll read verbatim. We recognize the impact of PTSI on first responders, and we commend Representative O'Mara for bringing this important issue to the forefront. There are no good guys, there are no bad guys in this issue. We're all yes in terms of getting people the help that they need. But the next line, that said, numerous local government organizations have raised concerns that are worthy of your attention. I have every confidence that all voices are going to be heard. I'm going to be a yes to move this forward, and I trust that it's a product that I can vote yes on in the final vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. Jamie, please call the roll.
Chairman Solomon.
Yes.
Representative Borowski.
By designation, yes.
Representative Brown.
Designation, yes.
Representative Genst. Representative Haddock. Representative Markozic.
Designation, yes.
Representative Monroe.
Designation, yes.
Representative O'Mara.
Yes.
Representative Paoli. Representative Sappi.
Designation, yes.
Representative Scott. Representative Takak.
Designation, yes.
Representative Webster.
Yes.
Representative Dan Williams.
Designation, yes.
Chairman Gillen.
Yes.
Representative Banta.
Designation, no.
Representative Ham.
No, with the hopes to getting to a yes with an amendment.
Representative Krupa,
Yes.
Representative Mako,
Designation, yes.
Representative Rigby,
Designation, yes.
Representative Shalaba,
Designation, yes.
Representative Stair,
Yes.
Representative Stender,
Yes.
Representative Watro,
Yes.
Representative Craig Williams.
Is he designation yes?
Okay. Okay. 23-2.
Thank you. Next up is, oh, sorry. That bill will now go to the floor for full consideration. Thank you, everyone. Next up is my piece of legislation, House Bill 1854. I will bring it up, seconded by Chairman Gillen. First, we have an amendment to consider. My amendment, A03500. I'll bring up my amendment, seconded by Representative O'Mara. Mike, please explain the amendment.
Amendment A03500 would remove language relating to the 911 surcharge from the bill.
Any comments or questions? This issue will live another day, but we thought it'd be wise to move this to the side and go to some other substantive issues. Chairman Gillen on the amendment.
I concur with your statement.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. Are there any negative votes on the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment passes unanimously. Next up is my amendment A03521. I'll take a second by Representative Genst. Mike with an explanation.
Amendment 03521 makes additional changes to the 911 law, including adding protections to call processing records, enhancing communication between agencies, governments, and service providers, and further modifying definitions to bring them in alignment with the reality of 911 service delivery in 2024.
Any comments or questions about the underlying amendment? Chairman Gillen.
My understanding is communication service providers and stakeholders are on board with this. Is that correct?
They're either yes or neutral.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. Are there any negative votes? Seeing none, the amendment carries unanimously. Now to the underlying bill, House Bill 1854. First, Mike, if you could just explain process, how we got to here and the process for moving forward and possible amendments on the floor.
Sure. The 911 law contained in Title 35 was set to expire January 31st of this year. In preparation for that, there were extensive discussions in 2023 about how to update that law, modernize it, and also address the 911 surcharge. As everyone in this room would be aware, the 911 surcharge was addressed in the fiscal code in December of 2023, removing that issue from the table. And what remained was the policy changes needed to modernize the 911 law. Throughout 2023, and I think prior to that, the 911 Advisory Board, as well as the experts at PEMA, went through the language of Title 35 to bring that up to date with what the modern system looks like. And they sat down with committee staff and went through what that looked like and collaborated on producing House Bill 1854. And then there were a few additional changes brought to us in recent weeks, which we just adopted into the amendment. And so that's how we got to where we are.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for all your work on this. When we're trying to create the most effective, efficient 911 system, we need to modernize the 911 law. This is our first attempt at it. If we're going to have a seamlessly integrated system, we need to bring in our county partners, our municipalities, the 911 board, our fee structure, change definitional language to make it seamlessly effective and efficient. We thank you for getting us to this point, and we welcome further conversation on this issue. Are there any questions or comments about House Bill 1854? Chairman Gillen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a highly collaborative process. We've had substantial stakeholder input. I think it's a tremendous model. We've got complicated issues, how to move forward. And certainly the safety and security of our communities, the 911 system is very sacred to each of us. This bill enumerates a number of different issues, really a plethora of concerns, and I'm very pleased that we're very close to a final product. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. Are there any negative votes on House Bill 1854? Seeing none, House Bill 1854 will move to the floor for consideration. Any other issues to bring to the committee? Seeing none, this committee is adjourned.